Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Gone with the Wind immortalized Clark Gable as one of Hollywood's greatest stars. Known as the King of Hollywood, Gable wasn't just a cinematic giant. He was a man surrounded by scandals. And the conflict with MGM also caused him many difficulties. The king died from a sudden heart attack. Even though the life of a cinematic icon has ended, his legacy is still there. The cinematic giant. William Clark Gable was born on February 1st, 1901, in Cadiz, Ohio. His father was an oil driller and farmer. His mother died when he was an infant. Gable dropped out of high school at 16 and went to work at a tire factory in Akron, Ohio. One evening, he saw a play and enjoyed it so much that he decided to become an actor. He tried to work his way in by taking an unpaid job with a theater company, but his dream was temporarily derailed when his stepmother died in 1919, and he went to help his father in the oil fields of Oklahoma. After 3 years there, he joined a traveling theater company, which quickly went bankrupt, leaving Gable stranded in Montana. He hitchhiked to Oregon and joined another company, where he met Josephine Dillon, the theater manager. Dillon, a former actress and respected theater teacher 17 years his senior, took an interest in Gable. She became his acting coach and paid to have his teeth fixed and his hair and eyebrows styled. Before long, they were married, and Gable and Dillon moved to Hollywood, California. Gable worked as an extra in Hollywood before turning his attention to the theater, first in traveling productions and then in the Broadway play Mackinac, for which he got good reviews. After it wrapped, he returned back to California and appeared in a stage production of The Last Mile. Back in Hollywood, Gable was rejected at screen tests because casting agents thought his ears were too big for a leading man. He managed to land his first speaking role in a movie in the Painted Desert in 1931, and after seeing him on the big screen, MGM offered him a contract. His first leading role was in Dance Fools Dance with Joan Crawford. Gable was a hit, and the studio began casting him as a roughneck villain opposite starlets including Jean Harlow, Greta Garbo, and Norma Shearer. By year's end, he had made a dozen films and launched his career as a leading man. Ultimately, though, he became sick of playing the bad guy and made his displeasure known. During the filming of Dancing Lady in 1933, Gable developed pyorrhea, an infection in his gums that required immediate removal of nearly all his teeth. The infection spread through his body and reached his gallbladder, and he was hospitalized. Because of delays in filming and necessary reshoots due to Gable's illness, the film ran $150,000 over budget. When he returned to work, MGM loaned him to the then low-budget Columbia Pictures for a Frank Capra comedy, It Happened One Night. It was widely rumored to have been punishment for either his bad attitude about his parts or the difficulty in shooting his last film. But in truth, MGM simply didn't have a project for him. He ended up winning an Academy Award for It Happened One Night, and having shown his range, he began being cast in a wider variety of roles. By now, Gable was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, and he churned out a series of successful movies like Boomtown, San Francisco, and Mutiny on the Bounty. In 1939, he appeared as Rhett Butler in his best-known film, the Civil War epic Gone with the Wind. He was dubbed the King of Hollywood and was a symbol of masculinity, admired by men and adored by women. When Margaret Mitchell wrote Gone with the Wind, she had Clark Gable in mind in her creation of Rhett Butler. Everyone knew it but Gable. "I never could see myself in that part," he once said. "It shot for 8 months, but I don't think I worked more than 8 weeks. I even got married to Carol Lombard and had a honeymoon during the picture. There were whole stretches I wasn't in. But when Rhett did make an appearance, I guess you can say, he made it count." Clark's portrayal of Rhett Butler was one of the most memorable in screen history, even though it was not his favorite role. The part he liked best was the wisecracking newspaper man in It Happened One Night. It won him an Oscar in 1934. always a big boy bashful, almost humble. When you brought up his career as an actor, Gable explained once, Metro had me in a rut playing mostly heavies or brutes. I was having a beef with the studio in those days. I was sick, even went to a hospital with exhaustion, but they threatened me with a suspension. To get even, they exiled me via a loan out to Colombia. In those days, Colombia was a little independent on Poverty Row, Siberia for me, so my bosses at MGM thought. But I knew they had guessed wrong as soon as I read the script. The picture was a big turning point in my career, gave me a chance to play comedy, and from then on, I was never typecast. Then, during the filming of Somewhere I'll Find You with Lana Turner in 1942, tragedy struck. Carole Lombard, Gable's third wife and the love of his life, died in a plane crash. He was devastated. Disconsolate, he enlisted in the Army Air Force at age 41. He served as a tail gunner on 5 bombing missions over Germany and made a propaganda film for the Army. The scandals that shaped his life. Clark Gable's life is surrounded by controversies. One of the biggest scandals of his career involved his affair with actress Loretta Young. The relationship resulted in the birth of a daughter, a fact that was hidden for decades. Their daughter, Judy Lewis, didn't learn the truth about her parentage until she was an adult. Another source of controversy was Gable's tense relationship with MGM. Known for his strong-willed personality, Gable often clashed with studio executives over creative control. He was one of the first major stars to openly challenge the rigid contracts that bound actors to studios, setting a precedent for future generations. Gable was a ladies' man both on and off screen, and he was married 5 times over the course of his life. His wives included his first theater director Josephine Dillon, socialite Rhea Langham, Maria Franklin Prentice Lucas Langham, actress Carole Lombard, Lady Sylvia Ashley, and actress Kay Williams Spreckles. Spreckles and Gable had one son, John Clark Gable, who was born after Gable's death. About a secret daughter, Judy Lewis is a result of an affair with actress Loretta Young. Young had kept her pregnancy secret to protect both their careers and the scandal that would result, as Gable was married at the time of the affair. Until Young confessed the truth to Lewis in 1966, she had not acknowledged that Lewis was her biological daughter. Young continued to keep the truth hidden from the public and only disclosed it in her authorized biography, Forever Young, published after her death in 2000. Gable and Lewis didn't have any father-daughter relationship throughout their lives. Married 5 times, Gable's most notable romance was with Carole Lombard, a fellow Hollywood star. Their love story was the stuff of fairy tales until tragedy struck. Lombard's death in a plane crash in 1942 devastated Gable, and he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces shortly after, perhaps as a way to cope with his grief. Though his personal romances were formidable in number, and he was 5 times married, Gable was uncomfortable in his public image as a mythical he-man, cutting a swath through feminine hearts, swaggering through boudoirs like Don Juan. On screen, he made females swoon in the days before anyone ever heard of bobby soxers. Clark once said he had received some 5,000 marriage proposals by mail. "They almost always enclose a picture with their letters," he explained, grinning self-consciously. "And let me tell you, the toughest job a man ever had is saying no, politely, to 5,000 women." Like many legends of Hollywood's golden age, Clark Gable was no stranger to rumors. His love life was often a topic of speculation, with whispers of affairs with co-stars and even claims of secret relationships that were never confirmed. Another persistent rumor revolved around Gable's infamous line in Gone with the Wind. Some claimed that Gable was initially reluctant to say the line, fearing it would damage his reputation. However, it became one of the most celebrated moments in film history. The King's final years. In his later years, Gable's health began to decline, largely due to his heavy smoking and drinking. Despite these challenges, he continued to work, determined to leave behind a legacy worthy of his title as the King of Hollywood. His final film, The Misfits, co-starring Marilyn Monroe, was released posthumously and is often regarded as a poignant farewell to one of cinema's greatest icons. On November 16, 1960, Clark Gable passed away from a heart attack at the age of 59. His death marked the end of an era, but his influence on Hollywood endures. Even today, Clark Gable remains a symbol of Hollywood's golden age. His roles continue to inspire actors, and his persona is still admired for its blend of charm, strength, and vulnerability. Gable's ability to balance masculinity with tenderness set him apart, making him a timeless figure in film history. As we remember the King of Hollywood, we can't help but marvel at the complexity of his life, a mix of triumphs, scandals, and unforgettable performances. Clark Gable may have left us more than 6 decades ago, but his legend lives on, reminding us why he'll always be the king.